This is a story about sea turtles. These wonderful creatures live most of their life in the sea. They only come up about once a year to lay their eggs on a beach. Then they promptly return to the water. They are probably our ancestors. Underneath their leathery flippers are finger bones just like ours. They originally branched off from land turtles or tortoises many millions of years ago. And who knows why they retreated into the sea? Perhaps to escape the jaws of Tyrannosaurus Rex. We'll never know. But they flourished, and they learned to adapt to all the bounty and dangers that the sea would bring to them. But now, each of the 5 species visiting our shores off the Atlantic Ocean are endangered. Every one. Why? Because they face a new lethal predator, the first really dangerous threat to their existence in many millions of years. And that's the human being, us. We are threatening them with our garbage that we dump into the sea, our chemical pollution, our fishing nets, not to mention putting their meat and eggs on our menus. Even sandcastles get in the way of little hatchlings as they run to return to the sea. And lights, they usually follow the reflected light of the moon on the water in their scramble to the sea. But if the lights of a town, hotel, or house are strong enough, the hatchlings get confused, and they head off in the wrong direction, and probably die wandering around. Our story today takes place on Jekyll Island, which is one of the Golden Isles of Georgia's coastline. It's a beautiful remote island and home to the Georgia Sea Turtle Center, a fitting home for the center because the island itself has undergone many evolutions, starting with the occupation by American Indians before Columbus's discovery, and a tragic period where slavery was used by thriving rice plantations on the island. In the late 19th century, the island again was reborn when it was bought by about 100 of New York City's Gilded Age elite to form the Jekyll Island Club. The club lists included the Goulds, the J.P. Morgans, the Pulitzers, the Rockefellers, the Cranes, and Vanderbilts, etc., etc. Anybody who was anybody in New York society. They vacationed there in the winter, traveling down in their private yachts or their Pullman cars. The Second World War brought this chapter to an end because of U-boat threats off our shores and to the waning of Victorian tastes, which really defined wintering at Jekyll Island. The island was reborn again when several decades ago it was sold by its Gilded Age owners to the state of Georgia, and then transformed miraculously once again to its former splendor. We have the good fortune to talk to the center's world-renowned director and veterinarian, Dr. Terry Norton, while he performs a surgical procedure on an injured turtle. Tens of thousands of visitors see the center every year, and it also helps other centers around the globe with their educational programs and their treatments for injured sea turtles.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Georgia Sea Turtle Center here on Jekyll Island. My name is Teddy Ivey, and I'm the education coordinator here at the center. Today we're going to take you through and show you several of the exhibits we have in our museum, as well as introduce you to several of our sea turtle patients that we currently have in our hospital. It's hard to miss our first sea turtle here at the center. When you go into the gift shop, if you look up, you'll notice Archelon. Archelon is an extinct species of sea turtles that in his day, about 74 million years ago, would have been about 4,500 pounds. Today, the largest sea turtle is going to be around 2,000 pounds, so this guy is about twice the size of any sea turtle you'll find today. Pretty impressive, and this guy was swimming around about the same time as the dinosaurs. Now, while we're best known for our rehab facilities where we house our sick and injured sea turtles, we also have a sea turtle museum as part of our educational department here at the center. And guests are brought through, they're taken through the life cycle of a sea turtle. And of course, every sea turtle starts in an egg. So guests get a stamp or a bookmark here where they'll stamp their part of the sea turtle journey. And it will tell them, for example, where their egg was laid. In this case, below the high tide line, an actually dangerous place for sea turtle eggs to be. As we continue on through the life cycle of a sea turtle, we of course get to the hatchling stage. Here is Kathy. Kathy is actually about 2 years old. Kathy was actually attacked by a ghost crab on her crawl down to the ocean, a pretty common predator that these hatchlings have to face as they head towards the Atlantic. There are also many other threats, including raccoons, and even human threats such as artificial lights or even sandcastles blocking their path to the ocean. Here in our exhibit gallery, you can also watch our vet staff do treatments throughout the day. It can be things as simple as bandage changes, all the way up to major surgeries that take place right in front of the public. A little bit later on, we'll take you guys back there and actually show you one of our treatments as it happens. Here off the coast of Georgia, and even up in your neck of the woods, we typically get 5 species of sea turtles. From the smallest to largest, we get the Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, the Hawksbill sea turtle, the Loggerhead sea turtle, the green sea turtle, and then the largest of all the species on Earth today, the leatherback, will even be found off waters as far north as Nova Scotia. Sea turtles have adapted over millions of years to live in that harsh ocean environment, and while they may look a lot different from us on the outside, once you get into the other layers, you'll notice they're actually very similar. A lot of the bones in the flippers are the exact same bones that we have in our hands. And even underneath that, you'll notice a lot of their internal organs, lungs, stomach, pancreas, kidneys, all things that we have as well. And actually internally, we are very similar to our sea turtle friends. Now we're about to head into our treatment room, where we're going to meet Dr. Norton, our director and veterinarian, while he treats a turtle named Test. Test came to us with several pieces of fishing line wrapped around the flipper, so tight that we actually had to amputate the flipper. But we'll go see how Test is doing now.
Hello. Hey, how you guys doing? Good. So this turtle is Loggerhead sea turtle. It's probably close to an adult animal, just slightly under that. We think it's a female, but you can't tell them until they're about 30 to 35 years of age. She had a fishing line wrapped around her flipper that was all the way down to the bones. We had to amputate it, and it has subsequently gotten infected. So we're dealing with the infection now. So that's what we're doing today, is flushing this wound out, and then we're going to trying different things, but we're going to put a wet to dry bandage in for about an hour and dry dock her. So that's what we're kind of setting up to do right now. I'm just getting the wound flushed first. So this is a device we can flush the wound thoroughly with. Let's try to get her. So this is a solution called chlorhexidine, which is just an antiseptic solution that we use. We flush the wound. Then we're going to do what's called a wet to dry. That's the first time we've done that, because he's got a lot of kind of like pus build up in there that we're trying to remove. The wet to dry will hopefully pull the material out. We're having a lot of problems with getting this wound under control. We've done multiple cultures, and she's been on different antibiotics and a lot of different treatments, anywhere from honey to silver to now we're trying to wet to dry therapy and a variety of other things.
Could you explain the effect of honey? I saw that on your website.
Honey has a lot of properties that are medicinal. It's acidic, so it helps kill bacteria and fungi just because of the acidity. And then it's what we call hyperosmotic, but that just means that it's got a lot of glucose in it, so high concentration of glucose that can help pull debris out of the wound, and also break down bacterial cell walls because of that high glucose content. And then the bee injects an enzyme called glucose oxidase into the honey, which converts the glucose to hydrogen peroxide. So low levels of hydrogen peroxide are another part of the effects of honey, and there's a lot of other properties like antioxidants and immune stimulants and things like that. So not all honeys are the same. So there's the gold standard is the Manuka honey from New Zealand, which is from the tea tree, the Manuka tea tree in New Zealand. And that's where a lot of the they use it in human medicine as well. So there's products that are actually developed for specifically for medicinal purposes that are packaged for burn victims and things like that. We'll use those as well, or we'll also work with our local beekeepers to get honey and honeycomb in. Sometimes we'll pack the wounds with honeycomb, which is kind of like a wax material, so it's a nice packing agent for some of the deep blood-struck injuries.
Has the turtle been sedated?
No, she's not sedated. This is a daily treatment. We can't sedate her every day. We use pain management when it's a real. This is just gauze went in there to dry it, so it's not. Shouldn't be too painful. I'm not doing anything real painful right now. But if we do anything painful, we'll use a sedative, pain management drugs. But it becomes hard when you're doing a daily treatment because you really can't sedate these animals every day. One, from the stress on the animal, two, from the time it takes. But we have developed a regime in this turtle that we can use drugs that have antidotes, so we can reverse them pretty quickly and get her back in the water. So if we are doing a heavy debridement, we can do the debridement under sedation and then get her back in the water. We have tried like local anesthetics, but it's such a deep wound, it's really hard to really make that work.
And where are the, how large a region do you cover for injured turtles?
We see turtles from Florida, usually northeast Florida, but we have gotten turtles from all over Florida, and then of course Georgia, occasionally North Carolina and New England. During the wintertime they get cases called cold stunning, which is where turtles get into cold water and they become comatose. So they get, usually it's in the wintertime and they get large number of turtles in all at once. So this year was kind of a low year for that because of the warm winter, which is good for the turtles, but we didn't have any centrets in there this year.
And how many turtles do you treat on average in a year?
That's something we're trying to figure out. It's been, I'd have to guess on that, but it's probably around, we get in probably, in 2010, we got 125 sea turtles, and I'm not sure how many of those were released. I would say about 80 of those were released. This past year was a little less because we didn't have the cold stunning. But I guess on average it's probably 80 to 100 that we treat, and then releasing it's less than that. But we have over a 50% success rate. So a lot of the turtles that come in are, really bad and may die after the first day. So whether you count those as a failure, but those are probably turtles that were going to die anyway. Things that went through a dredge and were just really severe cases.
And when you release them, is it the same area nearby, or do you have specific regions?
Oh, well, the green turtles that we got from Florida, we always take back to where they were from, so that state requires it. The loggerheads are usually okay with us releasing them off of Jekyll, so we try to make the releases educational and exciting for people, and so we want to get a lot of people there, so we do try to do them at special events, or we're going to be releasing some in May at our Nest Fest Festival Turtle Crawl, which is on Jekyll, and then coming up soon we'll be releasing a turtle on Ivey Island at the Ivey Island Turtle Trot, which is a run, and then we're going to release some at the Amelia Wild Nature Festival. We just released a turtle yesterday. Actually, it was one that was came from Cape Canaveral area, so it went back down there. That would be good. That was a green turtle. The water's starting to get warm enough that we can do some releases. We also see a lot of other turtles, though. We see terrapins, and the terrapin season's coming up now, so we get 250 to 300 turtles hit by car on this causeway alone. It's not just rehab. We're doing a lot of awareness and education, and it all comes hand in hand in research and mitigation, which means we try to do something to prevent the problem, especially with the terrapins, because it's so many that are getting hit by car. So we have a number of things we're doing to try to reduce that mortality level.
In reading your literature, so that sea turtles have, I guess, spent millions of years adapting to the sea, and they haven't had much chance to adapt to humans.
Right. Definitely flip with the, you know, the normal mortality issues like shark bites and, you know, the cold stunning is somewhat of a normal phenomena. So if they get in cold water, I mean, they've kind of evolved to disease issues are natural to some extent. I mean, there's some diseases that are increased because of the environmental issues causing the immune system to be compromised, but a lot of the fisheries things and like shrimp boat activity and fishing line, fishing gear problems, and a lot of the nesting beach, you know, there are nesting beaches that are being compromised, so there's not the places they used to have to nest. Those are all issues that are something that humans have developed, and so most of the things we see, like boat strikes and fishing line injuries and fish hooks and things like that, are all human impact type things. In garbage, you know, we do see occasional plastics and things that they've ingested, and had some that have died from that.
Well, this is going to be quite interesting for students up in the Hudson River Valley area. They've seen turtles, but never sea turtles. I don't think they get up that 100 miles up the Hudson River.
No, they wouldn't get up there.
Wouldn't get up that far.
They probably get in the ocean in that area, but not up in that creek.
So what are the chances that this turtle will be able to be released?
She'll be released. I mean, once we're going to get this infection under control. Right now we're consulting with a human orthopedic surgeon who's helped us a lot. And we just sent him all the culture results from this animal, and he's talking to their infectious disease people there at the local hospital. So hopefully we're going to come up with a regime to I think what we're going to do is put antibiotic beads in, so it'll be a series of beads that we put on a string that we insert into the wound after heavy debridement under anesthesia. So debridement means taking all that dead tissue out and then putting those antibiotic beads that would be an antibiotic that our drug our culture results indicate that they would be effective for this animal.
And he or she will be able to get along with one?
Yeah, they can get along with one flipper just fine. Okay. She's been adapting very well to it in the tank. And we've had, we'll put a transmitter on her so we can follow her along. And that way we'll know how she's doing for a while. It doesn't last forever.
Which raises an interesting question. How far afield do they go once they are released, if you've been tracking them?
Michelle can tell you. Do you know how the distances they've gone? I mean, they've gone up and all up and down the eastern seaboard. Some have gone around back. We had one interesting one where we actually took it back to the Gulf Coast of Florida. It was stranded near Panama City, and she had a transmitter on her, and she, in a very short period of time, went from down the west coast of Florida up the east coast of Florida back to Jekyll Island. And she encountered a male that had a transmitter on him from another rehab facility, and we believe they mated at that time because it was right around this time, which is the mating season, and then she subsequently went down to Cape Canaveral, and we believe she nested there. So that's one example of, but sea turtles have really amazing migrations. The one example is the Pacific Loggerhead that migrates from Japan. They hatch out in Japan, on the beaches in Japan, and then they migrate all the way to the Baja, Mexico, where that's where they forage, and then they'll go back to Japan when they're 35 years old. That's when they become reproductive mature. It's a pretty amazing migration. So these guys are, you know, we mostly have subadults and adult females that are already in this area, so they're not doing those real long migrations. They're sticking around here, but they go up, as I said, up to the eastern seaboard. So we've had some go up to Delaware Bay and back down to Florida and to the Keys and all around the Gulf Coast.
We read that the male turtles will stay in the sea their entire life and not come ashore.
Right.
Now, are they monogamous? Do they
No.
meet up with the...
They like lots of females. And the females like lots of males. So they, well, whether they like it or not, they get mated by a lot of males. So there'll be one nest will have 120 eggs, and there'll be multiple males that contributed to that females. But they're very antisocial, so when they're not in the mating time, they're fairly solitary animals. I mean, you may see greens together, but they're not. It's not like a troop or anything like a primate.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure, we're gonna just take her to a dry dock area. Talk me some more if you need to. Carry her out.
Oh, wow. How much does she weigh?
She weighs, I think about 150 pounds. She might be more than that. We weigh her every 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
She was 67 kilos, so that's about 150 pounds.
Wow.
So they can get up to 300. We've had a male loggerhead that was 500 pounds. So they can get pretty big. The leatherback is the biggest of the sea turtles, and the males can get up to 2,000 pounds. We wouldn't be carrying that animal.
Surprises a lot of folks is the makeup of the shell. Now, the shell is actually made of bone, with the spine going down the center of the shell and the ribs going across. So it actually makes up a relatively small portion of that body weight. But it does give them that extra protection there on the back with that hard shell. This one's even smaller and younger than Tess, so it's really hard to tell at this age, is it a male or a female?
That we don't give them anything too hard. Out in the wild, turtles like loggerheads will be eating very hard-shelled things like whelks and sea snails, as well as horseshoe crabs and blue crabs. Gemolog is definitely not there yet, but hopefully as she progresses on her road to recovery, we'll be able to start getting her things that she would be finding out in the wild.
How did she arrive at her name?
So the etymology of Gemolog is a combination of two things. Gemini is the astrological sign, and I believe Gemolog or Gemini are twins astronomically. So one of our gift shop employees, it was her name to give to Gemolog, and her twin grandsons or her twin grandchildren wanted to name it that. The second half of her name just being log, as in she is a loggerhead. So all the names that we try to give our turtles have to have an educational value to them, so somebody who comes across Gemolog will know it's a loggerhead because of her name. Here we're giving them a multivitamin that they're getting every day. It's actually a seabird multivitamin. It's got the same nutritional values that all of the sea turtles need, and they're getting a seabird vitamin because there's no sea turtle vitamin out on the market right now. It's something that we're working on here at the center as part of a nutrition study to hopefully develop our own sea turtle vitamin that is exclusively for our turtles. So after Gemilog has gotten all of her medication, I can go ahead and feed out the rest of her diet. I just want to scatter it around the tank. That is hopefully removing some of the human element from feeding, and we call this broadcast feeding. We don't want our turtles to associate humans with food, because once we put them back in the wild, which is the ultimate goal of the rehab center, we don't want them coming up to boats and begging for food or associating fishermen with food. So that's why we kind of scatter it about the tank and then step back, hopefully to remove the human element from the feeding equation.
Now we've met previously the species so far. We met the Loggerhead, and now the Catbird. Now we're moving on to species number 3, which is in this main area over here. You guys want to see along down?
These are diamondback terrapins. They're about 10 months old right now. They're more of a marsh turtle than an ocean turtle. And it's actually not these little ones that are hurt, but it was the mother that was hit by a car. And in a lot of cases, unfortunately, the mother doesn't survive. So one thing we'll do to help out, even if the mother doesn't survive, we'll still go ahead and bring her to the center, extract any viable eggs, incubate those eggs, and then hatch them out. And that's where a lot of these little hatchlings came from.
She's a Loggerhead juvenile, and while she was in rehab, she was found on the beach as a washback hatchling, meaning that she successfully made it to the water, but for one reason or another ended back up on the beach. We typically bring them back to the center to get them a Head Start program here. While she was here, she developed a rear end buoyancy issue, which we've seen as a little bit of trapped gas on her x-rays. That's gas in her body cavity. So what we're doing for her shell, as well as place a little bit of weight in that pouch, just to keep her rear end down and make her more comfortable in the water column. We're preventing any kind of shell or spinal deformity that could be happening because her rear end is up all the time. So she has been seen swimming normally, and we think that she is slowly passing that gas, but she's being treated temporarily with that fanny pack.
Smallest and cutest members here. Now, remember these snakes will be diamondback terrapins. These guys aren't sea turtles, they actually live in the marsh. Now, just doesn't mean that's not what you know that they're not sea turtles. Oh, they're living in the mud. So climb around in that mud and you try it out. Now, these guys were actually born and raised right here in our hospital. They came from eggs, but we rescued from nesting moths that are really quite hard on our colonies. Now, every summer, the mom turtles head out of the marsh to see where eggs populate their eggs, and they end up on the road.
The turtle you just saw back in our rehab pavilion here was Gracias, a Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. And Kemp's Ridleys are actually a pretty special species of sea turtle. Not only are they the smallest sea turtle in the world, but as a species, they're also the most critically endangered species in the world. And Gracias is another example of how humans affect sea turtles. Gracias is a boat strike victim here and is actually missing a small piece of the shell. And Gracias will have a scar there for the rest of its life. However, Gracias is still a likely candidate for release within the next several months.
Okay, and how did you get an interest in this part of ecology?
Sure. Well, I actually went to the University of Georgia, where I got my degree in what's known as Child and Family Development, which doesn't seem to have a lot to do with sea turtles, and honestly, it doesn't. But it does have a lot to do with education, which is what I do here at this center. I interact with people on a daily basis and help make sure that everyone understands the impact that we have on our environment. And environmental education has been my field of choice over the past several years. Humans also affect sea turtles through garbage, and items we use every day. And if you'll notice, some simple items, for example, an aluminum can, like a can of Coke, that we discard and ends up, let's say, in the Hudson River, which washes through the Atlantic Ocean where we do have sea turtles, will be there for around 80 to 200 years. And there are even items such as glass, which lasts so long in the ocean that we're even not able to put a number on it. And these are all items that we use every day. So even as far north as you guys are, up near the Hudson is going to end up in the Atlantic Ocean, and any trash that ends up there will do the same. So keeping this trash out of the ocean is one thing we can do to help sea turtles a great amount, as their survival rate is already pretty low, at about 1 in 4,000 sea turtle hatchlings making it to adulthood. The Sea Turtle Center itself has only been open coming up on 5 years, and in that 5 years we've released well over 180 sea turtles, and that's just sea turtles out into the wild. That doesn't count several hundred diamondback terrapins, land turtles such as box turtles or gopher tortoises, and even the occasional bird, snake, or alligator that comes through the center as well.
What on earth do you do with an alligator that's hurt?
Well, Dr. Norton, who we met before, is really one of the better wildlife veterinarians in the area, so he has expertise not only in sea turtles, but other kinds of wildlife that you might not have as pets. So he will often take other types of creatures in from the area, again, such as land turtles, snakes, or alligators that need a little bit of help. We actually had one alligator that was actually shot. There were several pieces of lead in the alligator, and we were eventually able to release that alligator back out into the wild.